and into that place of being grounded by love, astounded by love, surrounded by love. We welcome the loving, kind, compassionate word of our dear friend, the Reverend Mary Schaefer.
Greetings, O Divine One. Greetings, O Divine Circle. It is such an honor to connect with you today. I felt connected so many times with a circle, even though I'm in Austin. It's not that far away, right? And even though we are always connected, sometimes it seems like we step aside. But in fact, we're always connected. Even when I was in Paris, I was able to connect into this circle celebration, this celebration circle. I was able to connect in. And so I know that we are always inextricably connected, even when we don't know it. Inextricably connected. What does that even mean? Well, as with so many things, I need to go to the dictionary, first Google and then the dictionary, of course. So, forming a maze or a tangle, inextricably connected. So, at first, this doesn't feel positive or warm and fuzzy, but it does feel like what we experience, forming that maze. And then also, Webster tells us inescapable of being disentangled or untied. So, this simply confirms that we cannot be separated from our source. We are one with each other all the time, no matter what it looks like. We are one in this life, and we are one after this life. Emma Curtis Hopkins was a metaphysical teacher, a teacher of teachers in the late 1800s. And she says, there is no sin, sickness, nor death in spirit. I always remember that. I don't know much about Emma Curtis Hopkins, but I always remember she said that. There is no sin, sickness, or death. So when I was thinking about this topic of inextricably connected, a song popped into my head. Now, sometimes this happens. I don't know if it happens to you or not, but sometimes I get a couple words. Sometimes I get a rhythm. Sometimes I get a couple notes. And not being a musician, I have to depend on others to say this, to say what it is that I'm actually hearing. So this song, I was able to actually understand. It was clear. The song was an oldie by the Judds. Love can build a bridge. Maybe you remember it. The chorus goes like this. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? Let me say that again. Don't you think it's time? I do. I am so ready to open the doors to let love in. I am so ready. Margaret Wheatley tells us this. She says, in this turbulent time, we crave connection. We long for peace. We want the means to walk through chaos intact. She continues, the peace we seek is found in experiencing ourselves as part of something bigger and wiser than our little crazed self. The community we belong to is all of life. There's one bridge that links all of life together, and that is the divine intelligence, the source, the creative power. By whatever name you call it, it is that is back of all things. It's in our nature to be in community, to feel connected, and to establish a sense of belonging. And the way that we do that, the way that I've been able to do it, is to understand the spiritual identity as one with spirit. If we understand our connection with spirit, then we can understand our connection to each other. Even some of those people we wish we weren't connected to, we're still connected. Can I use the G word here? Can I talk about God? It doesn't make any difference what we call that divine energy, that creative intelligence. I'm going to say this. God is where we are, who we are, no matter what. There is no beginning. There is no end. There is just each of us as that divine oneness showing up just as we are. And if we're not showing up, then then something is missing. Something is missing if we're not playing our part. That divine intelligence continues to flow no matter what's happening in our lives, grief, sorrow, happy times. God is there. And there are times when we feel closer to spirit than other times. I remember when I first got started in metaphysics, there was an older crew, and the lady that ran the bookstore, and she had a sign there. She said, "If I don't feel close to God, who moved?" I always remember that. So it remains the same. God is right where we are all of the time, no exceptions. No exceptions. I know you've seen that bumper sticker that reads, "Love thy neighbor." No exceptions. So all my life, I heard about God's love. I heard about God's love, starting with Jesus loves you. And of course, the only Bible verse I ever learned was John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And then from First Corinthians, we hear this, we hear love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. And finally, love never fails. So, how does this work in my life? I heard Jesus loves the little children, and God's love is like a father for us children. Only I couldn't resonate with that because I wasn't very close to my own father, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Not like this little boy that went to Sunday school, his first day of Sunday school, and he came home and he said, "Dad, I want to ask you a question." "Of course," says his dad. The teacher was reading the Bible about the children of Israel building the temple, the children of Israel crossing the Red Sea, and the children of Israel making the sacrifices. "So what's your question?" his dad asked. "Well, didn't the grown-ups do anything?" So I was glad to discover that actually I could talk about Mother, Father, God, which worked for me for a while, anthropomorphic as it is, but I was still looking for that connection with spirit. I had a mentor in Southern California that called that divine big sweetie. Now, I thought that was pretty familiar and it made me smile, but it really wasn't me. And then I went to that period in my life, maybe you've been there too, where spirit is that big vending machine in the sky. Early on in my training, I learned to manifest palaces, princes, parking places. Yeah, and I can still do that. But that's not my relationship to spirit anymore. It's not that big vending machine in the sky. And of course, yes, yes, I've heard about unconditional love. I've heard about universal love. And I've even had a numinous experience of that. But what is my constant relationship to this love within me? And so my relationship with the divine grows and unfolds in a myriad of ways. And like the children of Israel, eventually you have to grow up. So all sacred scriptures proclaimed the unity of life, that every person is a center of God consciousness. The mystics know this. This is the meaning of the mystical marriage or the union of the soul with its source. And this is the basis of New Thought teaching, the spiritual union of all life. So, what if I'm not a child of God? But what if I've grown up now? And instead of God, the Father, Mother, I could have God as a partner, maybe even a spouse. Ernest Holmes, one of my teachers, writes in the Signs of Mind textbook, the great mystics like Jesus have taught that as we enter into the one enters into us and becomes us and is us. They've taught the mystical marriage, the union of the soul of man with the soul of God, and the unity of all life. So wait, I've come to a new understanding. If I have God as a partner, if I am united with spirit, if I am in union with this beloved, this is a totally different relationship. I mean, there's probably community property involved here. I could have a joint banking account with spirit and talk about palaces. In my father's house there are many mansions. Oh my gosh, to be intimate with spirit within, intimate, being closer than hands and feet. That is the divine. So now instead of looking at God the Father, Mother, what if I examine God as the spouse or partner? And I am into, by the way, peer marriage. I am into that being fully known, deeply loved. And so now, if I'm in a marriage with spirit, now I have different tools I can apply. Instead of being a child, I can apply tools that I've learned in my relationship skills. See, my marriage is second only to my love of spirit in my life. So I am familiar with marriage enrichment, marriage encounter, working on marriage. I just started to pull books off my shelf because just like you don't know how marriage works when you're a teenager because you're not married yet, you're not in a committed relationship. Just like as a 20 something, you don't even know what years of marriage is like um, because you're a newlywed. So you don't know until you get there. And more importantly, you can learn and study everything you want to know about it, but you're married to a specific person. And so, really, what you want to study and know about is that person. You don't need to know how to be married. You need to learn how to be married to that person because every relationship is different. And the same is true for the divine marriage. Spirit will show itself to you gradually over time, and you'll get to know it if you care to, if you dare to. So, one way to do that is to commit, to covenant, to vow, to find out what it means to be this spiritual being in a human body. So I started just pulling the books off my shelf. I've got several behind me. What about love poems from God? One of my favorites. Pure marriage. Yes, what about love languages? Ooh, this was a breakthrough for me. In his book, Gary Chapman propounds on 5 love languages. So he did that about marriage, but then he had the foresight, he had the wisdom, or perhaps God through him had the wisdom to publish a book on love languages of God. Hmm, love languages. And we can see them in our religions. First love language, affirmation, devotion, chanting. Gosh, how many organizations, how many religions chant to the divine, our devotees. This is affirmation. The Psalms of David, affirmation. Another love language, gifts. Muslims, almsgiving, or our tithing, or simply that idea that we give back, which leads to acts of service. When we attended the Parliament of World Religions several times, first in Salt Lake City and then in Toronto, the Sikhs, as an organization, fed everyone. So they fed 5,000 people a day, asking for nothing in response. They wouldn't accept any donations. The only thing you could do is you could be part of their acts of service. So, acts of service are what we do every day. This is a love language. Quality time, quality time. Meditators of all denominations know about quality time. And the fifth love language is touch. We know about hands on healers. Even the whirling dervishes are having that physical experience of spirit. So, God speaks in the love language that you can understand. Yeah, I like that idea. Last week, I received a gift from out of the blue. Uh, I'm having groceries delivered these days, and so when I unpack my groceries, there was a bottle of Smucker's Sunday syrup, caramel flavored. Now, I was kind of surprised because I didn't order it, didn't show up on the receipt. I don't know how it got there, but what no one knew, except that divine spirit, was that a few days earlier, I had finished a delightful little jar of handcrafted caramel sauce that our Paris neighbor gave us right before we left there in June. Sorry, honey, didn't even tell Rob. So the divine speaks to us in a language we can understand, and it also speaks to us in language that we have no idea what it's talking about, but we can't even hear it. Kind of like the blind carolers singing their hearts out in front of the school for the deaf. That still small voice speaks through us, within us, and it speaks through our friends and neighbors. And if you're not listening the first time, it'll speak through the loudmouth second cousin twice removed, the one that shows up the family reunion, and everybody hopes, they won't. So, with God as my partner, I thought about what kind of vows have I made? What kind of commitments have I made? And I'm thinking, this divine spirit is pretty likely to keep its vows. And so I know I have to ask myself, am I pulling my weight? Spirit as a partner, the divine courting me with gifts. My mind is blown wide open. And I realize that image doesn't work for everyone. So, what if I have become my parent? What if godlings, the children of God, grow up to be God, just like goslings grow up to be a goose? What if we grow up to be that divine? So we were children, we were partners, and now we are more than that. We have embodied that. Just like couples who have been together for a long time start to look like each other. Soon we become each other. So, yes, we are inextricably connected. And I continue to seek a greater understanding. If only I could get a hold of it once and for all. And then I could say, this is it. This is really it. Can you feel it? But I'm always growing into it. Ram Dass asks us to imagine feeling more love from someone than you have ever known. You're being loved even more than your mother loved you when you're an infant, more than you ever loved by your father, your child, your most intimate lover, anyone. This lover doesn't need anything from you. It isn't looking for personal gratification, and it only wants your complete fulfillment. So you are loved for being just who you are, just for existing. He goes on, you don't have to do anything to earn it. Your shortcomings, your lack of self esteem, your physical perfection, or social or economic success, none of that matters. No one can take this away from you. It'll always be there. And so the more I learn about myself, the freer I am, unlimited, to express the divine within. So I study, I shift the story, I shift the metaphor, I raise the vibration to a new story of oneness so that that divine can do more through me, in me. There is the Hindu story of the creator and the angels discussing where to hide man's divinity. And one angel says, well, put it at the bottom of the ocean. They'll never find it there. And God said, no, humans are very smart. Someday they'll find their way to the bottom. Another angel said, well, then put it at the center of earth. And the creator said, well, I suspect one day they'll find their way there too. We need a more obscure spot. And so another angel suggested the top of the highest mountain. And finally, an angel said, I've got it. Let's put it in a place they'll never look, right inside them, right inside them. And so, knowing that we are spiritual beings in this human experience, knowing ourselves as one with the divine, we realize that we are never alone. We are all one. And so, when we embrace that and that we know that we're not walking this journey alone, we release our separation from spirit and from each other. And then we realize our oneness with spirit, inextricably connected to everyone else's awakening. And it takes each and every one of us to create the wholeness, to create the oneness. And this is the time of connection when we feel love and compassion surrounding us. And so our job in this time is to stay open to connection, recognizing the good, recognizing the divine intelligence, recognizing that within us that keeps us inextricably connected to that spirit within, to ourselves, and to our spiritual community. In entrusting ourselves and spirit, we open our hearts, we open our minds, we open our souls to receive love, to receive compassion, to receive all the good that is coming to us. Because I don't know about you, but I've noticed that in order to take a deep breath, I first have to exhale. And so in this, I let go of all of that as well. Yes, I breathe in that trust and open my heart and mind, but I also breathe that out. An eternal circle. And it is in this oneness that we truly feel the divine connection. We must open to receive so that we can release and let go. So, yeah, these are turbulent times. And how do we move through them mindfully and gracefully? Well, if we're deeply experiencing, embodying, and knowing our connection, then we discover that we're connected to each other through love and compassion. And we experience this directly. Margaret Wheatley continued, sacred experience gives us what we need to live in this strange and yet wondrous time. We need as many sacred moments as we can find. We invite these moments when we open to life and to each other. In those grace filled moments of greeting, we know that we're part of this and that it's all right. All is well. All will be well. All is well. And so thank you for allowing me to share this journey. I'm grateful that our paths cross. Namaste.
And so let's take a moment and to begin by closing our eyes and becoming aware of this body in this place, in this moment. Won't you take a moment to just scan your physical body from the top of your head to the tip of your toes? And even as you do so, remember that you are so much more than just your body. So breathe in slowly. Breathe in calmly. And take your time. There's no hurry. Feel your willingness to connect through love, through compassion, through kindness. And feel that flowing through every cell and fiber of your being now. As we choose to find that meaning here within rather than out there, as we choose to be kinder and more compassionate and more loving with ourselves, then we're able to give that love and kindness and compassion to others. And there's nothing we need to do to create this, to make it happen. Simply by focusing our attention on what is and what always has been moving through me, to me, as me, today and every day. I am a radiating center of divine light. I am love. And my purpose is to experience, explore, and express this divine light, this love radiating through me as compassion, as kindness for myself and for all those that I encounter. I am whole, perfect, and complete just as I am. And yet something new is being born through me as I listen, as I focus on what is emerging, as I face and embrace my soul self, as I remember that I am a spiritual being living this human experience. I am a conscious co-creator of my life. And as I open up to the divine, as I feel how much more there is waiting to come into full expression, I feel my willingness to be an instrument, a vessel, a vehicle for the expression of divine light and love. At the same time, I release my need to be anywhere, anyone, or anything other than what, who, and how I am now. And now. And now. For this opportunity to remember, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is.